Welcome back, guys. Today I'm actually doing a video that was requested by several viewers who are having trouble installing NVIDIA drivers within Debian. Now, Debian is terrific, lots of good distributions out there. This happens to be the latest Debian 8.6 Jessie. I installed it just a few minutes ago. The only thing I've done is I've added contrib and non-free to my sources, and I downloaded guvcview and kazam and leafpad. But if you go into Synaptic and take a look at the repositories, you can see that I added contrib and non-free. Now, one of the problems installing NVIDIA drivers within Debian is that there are lots of Debian distributions out there, and they all add their own spin on the sources. So they might have their own repos, and so it can muddy the waters when you're going to install non-free drivers. But what you need to do is install contrib and non-free to your sources list if you're using stable. Now, once that's done, you want to reload. So you'll hit reload, and then you'll be ready to do an install. Now, one of the other things I did was I installed my non-free Wi-Fi drivers for my Broadcom Wi-Fi card. And as you can see, Broadcom is installed. So it installed properly, no problems at all. Let me show you one of the issues with Debian and NVIDIA. If you do a search on Debian, NVIDIA, you're going to get no shortage of different procedures to follow. First of all, what I recommend is go right to Debian's wiki. Take a look at the graphics, NVIDIA graphics drivers page. We're going to get back to this in a second because we're going to follow this to do the install. But if you pull up some of the websites that come up in this search, you'll find many different procedures. Now, here's one. This is the one that I was using for a while. Add your contrib non-free, update, and then install NVIDIA driver. Then you have to install xconfig, nvidia-xconfig. Then you have to run nvidia-xconfig, and then go into your settings, and you'll have the 340/65. Now, if you scroll down, you'll see that it works for some people and some people not. See, Debian won't start anymore. Debian won't start anymore. So, but this one says worked like a charm. So, as you can see, it's kind of a hit or miss, and I think it depends on what Debian distribution you're using, because the sources list changes. They add their own repos. For example, I installed Point Linux, and they have an Opera repo installed out of the box. They have Google. They have I think it's a VirtualBox, and then they have their own repo on top of the normal Debian repos. And so the reason I think that some of these procedures work on some machines and not on others is because everybody's machine is different depending upon which distribution you're using. For example, Sparky Linux, they have their own repos, and I have found that what works sometimes in Sparky doesn't work in Point Linux and vice versa. Also, if you throw MX15 Debian into the mix, they have a different procedure that they recommend, and so it can become extremely confusing. The other issue is I'm not sure Debian. I'm not sure the folks who manage the Debian process are as on top of their distribution management as someone or as the folks are over at Manjaro, for example. So, and everybody has their issues, but Debian seems to be unusually difficult to have one procedure that works. And that's why I wanted to do this video. We're going to see if we can follow the Debian wiki so that we can get NVIDIA drivers installed. So let's go to the first section, which is identifying which graphics card we have. I'm going to do that by running nvidia-detect. Now, in order to do that, I have to install it. So it's sudo apt get install nvidia-detect. Okay, so now that it's run, now that it's installed, we're going to run it. Okay, so my card, if you look down here, detected NVIDIA GPUs, I've got the GTX 760, that's fine. Your card is supported by the default drivers. It's recommended to install the NVIDIA driver package. Here's where it gets confusing. Let me close out this terminal. If I go down to drivers, you see that the stable version, basically for Debian 8, the stable version is 340.65. That's what you get if you install with contrib and non-free. However, if you want 352.79, you're going to have to enable Debian Jessie backports. Now, that's not where we're going with this. I'm not going to enable Jessie backports. If we're running Debian stable, we're looking for stability. And so we're going to go with the latest stable driver available, which happens to be the 340.65. So if we take a look at installation for Debian Jessie, we're not going to do it via the Jessie backports. We're going to do it through the stable install using contrib and non-free, but we're going to use this version here. Okay, and that's the 340.96. So the first thing it says is you have to add contrib and non-free, which I have done. Now, the next thing it's telling you to do is run aptitude update. Well, again, adding to the confusion, normally you would use sudo apt get instead of aptitude. If I run sudo aptitude update, okay, now it went through and updated the system using the sources that I have, which include contrib and non-free. The other thing that I normally recommend is enabling your machine for 32-bit architecture. So, and that way you pull in all of the dependencies for 32-bit if you're running 64-bit. Okay, so this applies if you're running a 64-bit install. And the reason you want the 32-bit architecture enabled is because if you're going to do any gaming, which I assume you would be, or else you probably wouldn't be concerned with your NVIDIA drivers. If you're going to do some gaming, you're going to need potentially some 32-bit. For example, if you're going to run Steam, it requires 32-bit, some of the dependencies. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I open File Manager and I go to my little trusty file folders and I look at Debian installs, I have Debian architecture. That's the command. And I'll review that with you. Sudo space dpkg space dash dash add dash architecture space i386, just the way I have it here. So I'm going to press enter, and that enables for 32-bit architecture. Now I'm going to update again. Sudo aptitude update. And evidently, Debian prefers using aptitude with the NVIDIA. Now, there is a difference between aptitude and apt-get. Now, if you look up the website, the Debian explanation of aptitude, basically, and this you can find this online, but aptitude provides the functionality of apt-get as well as many additional features. Aptitude offers easy access to all versions of a package, makes it easy to keep track of obsolete software, includes a fairly powerful system for searching particular packages and limiting the package display. It can be used to install the predefined tasks available. And aptitude in full screen mode has SU functionality embedded and can be run by a normal user. Aptitude is the preferred program for daily package management from the console. So that's why they're recommending it. Normally I use apt-get, but since I am following the NVIDIA wiki, I am going to use aptitude as they recommend. So now that I've enabled 32-bit architecture and I've run an update, now according to the procedure that is documented here on the Debian wiki, which is dated, let's see what the date is on this, August 11th, 2016. So this is the latest and the greatest package or instructions. I am going to follow this to the letter, and we're going to see if it works. So now if we go back to our 34096, this is where I am now. I need to install. Now this is going to install the Linux headers and the NVIDIA kernel. You do need both. It has to happen both. Now, that will need to be run as root, so I am going to have to back up and put sudo. And let's go ahead and press the button. Okay, so now I am going to install everything that they're telling me. Now it's going through the install, and it's saying that this will also install the recommended NVIDIA driver package, which, if you remember, is what the instructions said. When I did nvidia-detect, it said it recommends I install the NVIDIA driver package. So this will be installed. Now, it's telling me that the nouveau kernel is loaded, and the easiest way to fix this to get the NVIDIA kernel is to reboot. That's understandable. Now it's saying that my NVIDIA xorg configuration file needs to be updated. So I'll say OK. It's going to go ahead and finish building the module and installing the drivers. Now, when I finish, it doesn't say it here. It just says create an xorg server configuration file and then restart your system. Well, the only way to do that is to run nvidia-xconfig, which ironically I don't believe is installed with this package, with their instructions. So we're going to check that. I'm going to use sudo aptitude install nvidia-xconfig. And it wasn't installed with the main installation that I just did. It did not bring in an nvidia-xconfig, but we do need to run that. So now I just installed it, now I'm going to run it. And it's telling me that a new revised xorg config file has been written, which means that technically speaking, all I have to do is reboot and I will have NVIDIA. Now let's check our packages, because there should be an NVIDIA settings package that we can take a look at, and there is. So this was installed with the original package that I installed, the first install with the headers and the NVIDIA driver package. Let's take a look. So it's telling me that I'm not currently using the NVIDIA driver, so I need to edit my X configuration file, and it says just run nvidia-xconfig as root, which I did, and restart the X server. Okay. So now I don't have anything. I have the settings, NVIDIA settings application, but I don't have the drivers activated. Let's go ahead and reboot, and I will be right back with you guys, and we'll take a look to see if this worked. Be right back. Welcome back, guys. So I rebooted. Let's take a look. In our settings, we have NVIDIA settings, and now I'm running the 34096. I had no hiccups at all. So the basic procedure that is outlined in the NVIDIA graphics drivers wiki page works fine, providing you're running Debian Jessie and you add contrib non-free to your sources. So let's review briefly. Install nvidia-detect, then run nvidia-detect, see which driver you have, scroll down to Jessie, pass the back ports to the 34096 section, which uses the standard Jessie repos with contrib and non-free added. So once you add those to your repo, you want to run sudo aptitude update, sudo aptitude to install this command for the Linux headers and the NVIDIA kernel. Then you want to install nvidia-xconfig. Then you want to reboot. Then you want to install nvidia-xconfig. You want to run nvidia-xconfig, and then reboot. If you follow the recommended Debian procedures, you should be successful. If you're running a different Debian distribution, they may have altered the repos, and you may need to check with them to see what procedure they recommend for installing NVIDIA drivers. But I just reviewed with you the standard. This is an up-to-date Debian Jessie install, nothing fancy. And I just installed NVIDIA without an issue following the Debian procedure that has been updated as of August 11th, 2016. But always work off the Debian information. Go straight to the source. Get their recommended procedures. Follow them. You should be fine. So guys, I hope that clarifies the Debian NVIDIA driver install information. If you have any questions, put them into the comments and I'll do my best to help you get past whatever obstacle is in your way. So thanks for stopping by the channel today. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Take care.